He spoke again about Lord Amherst and observed that it would be an insult to ask a Chinese ambassador, if there were one in London, to perform similar ceremonies there as were required of the English ambassador at Peking, because it was not the custom of the country he was in. For example, said he, if the King of France were to require the English ambassador to kiss his hand, it would be an insult to him because it is not the custom in France, though his ambassador did it in London. In like manner, to ask a Mandarin to perform a similar ceremony before King George's picture is a bêtise and an insult to China, because it is not the custom of the place. An ambassador is for the affairs and not for the ceremonies of the country he belongs to. He becomes the same as one of the first nobles of the country he is in and should conform to the same ceremonies. If anything more were required of him, then indeed he ought to refuse his consent. The 31st, dined at Plantation House in company with Count Bellarmine, Baron and Baroness Sturmer, Captain Gurker, easy say. The commissioners were very anxious to know something about Napoleon. Told Baron Sturmer, with whom I had a long conversation, that Napoleon had said, when he read a letter in the newspapers which was attributed to the Marquis Montchenu, that it was another proof of the imbecility of l'ancienne noblesse de France, que ces messieurs-là sont toujours la même, the ancient nobility of France, that those gentlemen were always the same. April 2nd. Saw Napoleon, who was in tolerable spirits. I asked him if it were true that he had been induced to quit Egypt by his having received private information that the Directory purposed to get him assassinated there. No, replied the Emperor. I never heard or thought so. Neither had the Directory any intention of causing it to be done. They were jealous of me, certainly, but they had no idea of the kind. And in the actual situation of France, I do not think that they wished it. I returned from Egypt because my presence was necessary to the Republic, and because the first object of the expedition had been gained by the conquest of Egypt. I asked if the project had originated with him or with the Directory. With both, one and the other, replied Napoleon. We both thought of it at the same time. Told him what I had said to Baron Sturmer about Montchenu. For the credit of France, said he, they ought to have sent out amongst the English some person possessed of a little talent instead of an old imbecile. Mr. and Mrs. Churchill from India came up yesterday to see Madame Bertrand with a view of having an interview with Napoleon. His Excellency, however, took an effectual mode of preventing it by sending up Sir Thomas Reed to accompany them. It is probable that Napoleon, who is very partial to female society and was informed that the young ladies were highly accomplished and spoke French fluently, would have managed to have met them accidentally had not Sir Thomas been an attentive listener close to their sides during the whole time. Captain Cook of the Tortoise and Mr. Mackenzie, midshipman of the same ship, came up to Longwood. Mr. Mackenzie had been midshipman on board the Undaunted. Captain Usher, when the Emperor took a passage in that ship to Elba, Captain Cook told me that after waiting some time on the lookout, they saw Napoleon walking in the garden, who sent for and asked them many questions. He recollected Mr. Mackenzie, observed that he had grown much since he had seen him before, and made some inquiries about Captain Usher. He asked Captain Cook how long he had been in the service, to which he replied, 30 years. He seemed surprised at this and asked what actions Cook mentioned, amongst others, Trafalgar. Napoleon asked the name of the ship he belonged to and diverse questions about the battle, where he came from, and concluded by asking him where he was going to dine. At camp, was the reply. At camp, then take care, said Napoleon. You do not get drunk. Cipriani in town, making the usual purchases. Third, Napoleon observed that he had seen yesterday an old seaman, which he expressed in English. He looks, said he, like a seaman, and pari un bravo uomo, and he seems like a brave man. There was with him a midshipman who was on board of the frigate with Usher. When I took passage in her to Elba, he's much grown, continued he, but I recollected him. I told him that the midshipman had said the ship's company of the Undaunted had liked him, Napoleon, very much. Yes, replied Napoleon, I believe they did. I used to go amongst them, speak to them kindly, and ask different questions. My freedom in this respect quite astonished them, as it was so different from that which they had been accustomed to receive from their own officers. You English are aristocrats. You keep a great distance between yourselves and the popolo. I observed that on board of a man o' war it was necessary to keep the seamen at a great distance in order to maintain a proper respect for the officers. I do not think, replied the emperor, that it was necessary to keep up so much as you practice. When the officers do not eat or drink or make too many freedoms with them, I see no necessity for any greater distinctions. Nature formed all men equal. It was always my custom to go amongst the soldiers and to connive, to converse with them, ask their little histories, and speak kindly to them. This I found to be of the greatest benefit to me. On the contrary, the generals and officers, li trattei poco bene, treated them badly, and kept them at a great distance. I asked, continued he, the old seaman, where he was to dine, and cautioned him not to get drunk. He told me he was married and had no children. I asked him what he intended to do with his money. He said that he would leave it to a hospital. I then asked him if he had any nephews or nieces, and recommended him to leave his riches to them instead of to a hospital. You brought a book, said he, about the Battle of Waterloo to Gorgo? Author says that I was an imbecile, that my army were a set of robbers, and that I committed one of the greatest blunders of which a military man could be guilty by engaging Lord Wellington with a forest in his rear. Now, the great fault in Lord Wellington was having engaged me in a position with a forest in his rear, with only one road leading to it. As in case of a defeat, he could not have retreated. To effect a retreat well, it is necessary to have several roads by which your army can retire in large bodies and with celerity, and also be able to defend themselves if attacked. It would have required 12 hours without being molested to enable Wellington's army to have gotten to the forest. The confusion of a beaten army attempting to retreat by one road would have been such as to cause its total destruction when attacked. Another libeler says that I conquered Italy with a few thousand galley slaves. Now, the fact is, they probably so fine an army never had existed before. More than one half of them were men of education, the sons of merchants, of lawyers, of physicians, or the better order of farmers and bourgeoisie citizens. 2/3 of them knew how to write and were capable of being made officers. Indeed, in a regiment, it would have puzzled me to decide who were the most deserving subjects, or who best merited promotion, as they were all so good. Oh, continued he with emotion, that all my armies had been the same. When on a march, I frequently called to the soldiers for someone to come forward and write from my dictation. I was surrounded directly by dozens eager to undertake it, as there were few who did not write like a clerk. If, continued he, the French army had even been a set of brigands, which is not the case, it ill becomes a Frenchman to say so. But for your purposes, you've found worse Frenchmen than Louis has yet found Englishmen. Perhaps there is more nationality, more public spirit than in France. You are islanders. C'est lo spirito insular. This is an islander spirit. And besides, you have not had a revolution so lately as in France. To form a correct judgment of the two nations, it would be necessary to see both immediately after a revolution. Moreover, your ministers have many Frenchmen in pay to write whatever is pointed out to them against their own country. Napoleon then asked if we kept Good Friday sacred, if we fasted, and what was our mode of doing so. I replied that we did observe it, that Protestants seldom fasted, but that when we practiced it, we abstained altogether from food, that we did not consider avoiding animal food, but gorging with turbot and with any other delicate fish as fasting. You are right, said the emperor. You are perfectly right. If one fasts at all, it ought to be from everything, or else it does not deserve the name. O comically homini sum besti, how much a beast is man, to believe that abstaining from flesh and eating fish, which is so much more delicate and delicious, constitutes fasting. Povero uomo, poor man. Before my reign, said he, the oath taken by the French kings was to Exterminate all heretics. My coronation, I swore to protect all worships. Louis has not yet sworn, because he has not been crowned, and in all probability will not take the oath of extermination through fear of you and of the Prussians. Not that he is not the will. On the contrary, he would with pleasure both swear and cause it to be effected, for the family of the Bourbons are the most intolerant upon earth. The English will yet discover what they are. Napoleon afterwards spoke about Hoche. Hoche said he was one of the first generals that ever France produced. He was brave, intelligent, abounding in talent, decisive and penetrating. Intriguant also. If Hoche had landed in Ireland, he would have succeeded. He possessed all the qualities necessary to ensure success. He was accustomed to civil war and knew how to conduct himself under such circumstances. He had pacified La Vendée and was well adapted for Ireland. He had a fine, handsome figure, a good address. He was prepossessing and intriguing, but by some imbecility, he was placed on board of a frigate which never reached the Irish coast, which the rest of the expedition of about 18,000 men got into Bantry Bay. Where they remained for some days perfectly masters of the means of disembarkation. But Grouchy, who I believe was second in command, did not know what to do. So that after having had it in their power to land and send the ships away, as they ought to have done, they remained a short time, did nothing, and then departed like imbeciles. If Hoche had arrived, Ireland was lost to you. If the Irish, added he, had set over honest men to me, I would have certainly made an attempt upon Ireland, but I had no confidence in either the integrity or the talents of the Irish leaders that were in France. They could offer no plan, were divided in opinion, and continually quarreling with each other. I had but a poor opinion of the integrity of that O'Connor, who was so much spoken of amongst you. Fourth, Napoleon, dressed on in the billiard room in very good spirits, spoke about the Admiralty as to sign the commissions of the naval officers. Was surprised when I informed him that none were signed by the king. What? Was not Nelson's commission signed by King George? I replied in the negative and said that none but officers in the army and marines had commissions signed by the king, that his majesty had nothing to do with naval promotions. Who appoints the admiralty? Said Napoleon. I replied, the sovereign. Then said he, it is a humbug, as if the king wants to give a command to an admiral or to promote an officer, he has nothing more to do than to signify his wish to the admiralty, who would not dare to refuse him through fear of losing their places. I observed in reply that it had been said that the sovereign had at times caused the appointment of an admiral and commander-in-chief not exactly agreeable to the wish of the admiralty, but that in such cases it was at the option of the lords of the admiralty to confirm or not the promotions made by him, excepting certain vacancies which by right or by custom were in his gift. Bah, said Napoleon, if they did not confirm the promotions, would not the king dismiss them from their places? The king can promote whom he likes. He has great power, because he appoints the ministers and commands those who have the direction of everything. Ministers love their places too well to run the risk of losing them by refusing to comply with the wishes of the sovereign, unless in rare instances. It has happened to myself that a minister has said, Sire, I cannot agree to this. It is contrary to my opinion, and I will sooner resign than comply.